Since many of you asked that you would like to hear my thoughts as I go through a rift, that is exactly what I will do with this one. This isn't my fastest clear, but it is certainly one of the more educational ones, as the rift itself is decent but nothing extraordinary, while I also make a number of mistakes that I would like to explain to you. As I always say it, you are more interested in the right mob type than the right map layout with Inas, which means that the build performs best in small to medium density against high value targets. The mob type you see here is one of the overall better ones you can get in the game, but it is also very dangerous, especially for builds that are stationary for a long time, like Inas. And this is why you see me trying to keep my distance from the enemies as much as possible, while I also try to save a single charge of dashing strike after I'm done with my nuke to quickly get away. The elite I'm fighting has very dangerous affixes, but it is also a good mob type that is willing to follow, and therefore it is easy to add additional trash monsters into my next nuke. As you can see, I'm always trying to keep up a density that I can barely finish off with a single nuke, while of course I'm also slowly wearing down the elite in the process. I'm only moving forward until I deem that the density is gonna be good enough for my next nuke. Then I turn back, circle a bit around the mobs and pull everything together, and then go boom. You could also see that I was spamming my Cyclone strike as I was moving toward the Oculus Ring proc. That is something you always want to do, given you get a proc close to yourself. You might also wonder why I keep using my generator and Cyclone strike while I'm moving around, even though I do not have a Lefebvre or a Spirit Guard. One is to stagger enemies, but more importantly to improve my chances of getting a Flying Dragon proc for my next nuke. Even if it expires until my nuke, it increases the chance to get a reproc when I stop, as higher attack speed of course means higher chance to proc it, which unfortunately doesn't happen in this particular nuke, as I need to press my Mystical Eye immediately since my Jags of Lies is at its peak. And here comes the first major mistake I make in this rift. I turn back and try to finish off the elite, which by the way is completely healthy. Even though the O-Kills variant deals very well with elites, and this elite also has harmless affixes and is a generally good mob type, you never want to fight a full HP yellow elite when there are basically no trash mobs around. You can see that I'm trying my best to herd everything together, and I initially thought that little pocket would contain many more enemies, and then I realized my best chance was to stack Stricken on the elite while it was still alone. But unfortunately it wasn't enough and I just wasted a lot of time. Even if we do everything correctly, our damage just isn't exactly reliable with Inas, since we have limited control over our Jags of Lies stacks and Flying Dragon procs, while our allies also like to take a picnic instead of blowing up. Therefore, trying to force down singular elites is an unnecessary risk that you want to avoid. But back to the rift, as you can see the second floor has exactly the same mob type, which is quite good, while it is also one of the best maps in the game, with a conduit right at the first pylon spawn. And here is the second major mistake I make. When you find a conduit, it is natural to try and search for additional elites before you take it, while you also try to thin out trash a bit so that your conduit will only hit elites. The problem was that I went over the big booty spider pack, in hope that I could find additional packs that I could draw back. Toxic lurkers are one of the worst mobs in the game to kite, because they get stuck on virtually anything since they are so huge. So even if I had found additional packs, which by the way I didn't, I still wouldn't have been able to kite everything back to the conduit since the spiders just blocked the road. And they were also of course illusionist, just to make it even worse. So the right play here would have been to immediately turn back after seeing the spiders, and slightly kite everything toward the conduit and immediately take it. So after taking a conduit, you want to nuke the elite with the highest HP, which is of course the one coming out from the pylon. This way your conduit will finish everything off at roughly the same time. Which of course would have been the case if I managed to get all three packs together. But unfortunately one of the spiders decided to take a nap a mile away. So the lesson here is do not be greedy. If you have 2 or 3 packs near your conduit, then just take it and move on. By the way, I was thinking here that I could still zap one or two extra packs if they weren't shielding. And then I saw the next pack and was like, seriously? An additional thing that you want to keep an eye out for when you have a conduit is that you will frequently spawn Oculus rings. So just be ready to jump into these before you do your nuke. Also, you obviously want to keep on attacking if you just have a single elite left to stack your stricken. But you still need to keep an eye out for your Shenlong's buff. If you only attack with your generator, you will hit maximum spirit way too early, and it might result in that you drop your Shenlong buff before the nuke comes. This is something to keep in mind when you have a shield pylon too. And now just a quick survival tip. You can see that I always approach new enemies moving slightly sideways and not directly towards them. And that is mainly to dodge enemy projectiles, which is much easier to do like this. You can also see that I'm circling around the power pylon to stall for time until I'm close to my cold cycle and can pop my Serenity. In a dangerous pool like this, you obviously immediately want to nuke as your fire cycle comes. You could see that I stayed in for a few extra Cyclone strikes to maximize my damage, but I also almost lost my chi deaths in the process, so this is something you might want to avoid when playing hardcore. Generally, the more dangerous the pool is, the more distance you want to keep between your nukes. Kiting packs with dangerous ground affixes like Poison or Arcane Enchanted is also crucial, as you will make the elite to use these affixes while you are still on the move, and when you finally stop for your nuke, it will generally be much safer. The elite I'm fighting here I cannot finish off solely because of a mistake again. I am too focused on getting a Flying Dragon proc, and I do not press my Mystical Eye in time. And this is the reason I said in my guide, if you see that your Dregs of Lies is about to hit a peak during your fire cycle, then immediately press your Mystical Eye and do not bother with your Flying Dragon, because getting a Flying Dragon proc in the end will always be RNG, whereas you will surely lose Dregs of Lies stacks and therefore damage if you wait for too long. So here I know I'm moving in the wrong direction, but I also know that I could get an additional pack or a pylon and basically just spawn the boss right on this floor. Now this nuke is the example where you should wait before pressing your Mystical Eye button, because I do not have a Flying Dragon proc and my Dregs of Lies stacks are also climbing. You can again see here how I try to circle around my pool to mitigate the incoming damage. So in this nuke I see I have a Flying Dragon proc, but I have no idea when I got it, meaning it is the safest to instantly press the Mystical Eye button as the fire cycle comes, before I have a chance to drop the buff. Since Flying Dragon has a 7 seconds duration, and you can only reproc it in the last 2 seconds since it also has an internal 5 seconds cooldown. Add to this that you only have a 4% chance with each of your attacks to get a proc, and then you can see that it isn't a guarantee. So at this point I know I have enough on this floor to get a spawn, and I want to check for a pylon and also see what the next floor has. Again, no luck for a Flying Dragon proc, but I also see that my Dregs of Lies isn't at its peak, so I can wait a few more seconds before I press the Mystical Eye button. The Rift Guardian I got here is one of the better ones, since it is single target so I can stack my Stricken, while it is also not so dangerous. You see me moving around a lot because I want to keep up the damage reduction effect from the Endless Walk set, especially until I have my cheat deaths back. The only two abilities that you need to be afraid of when fighting this boss are the tornadoes and the falling rocks. The latter he only uses around half HP, so if you nuke him hard enough you might not even see it. When you are fighting the Rift Guardian, the same rotation applies that you are using during the Rift, meaning you stop in place with your Serenity up when you are close to your cold cycle, followed by Inner Sanctuary and then Mystical Eye during your fire cycle, depending on your Flying Dragon and Dregs of Lies stacks. You should be able to finish off most Rift Guardians in 3 or 4 rotations. So I hope you enjoyed my commentary and learned something new. If so, then giving a like and subscribing to the channel is always appreciated. See you next time.
Miserable. Or at least return to your normal level of misery. I'm not miserable. I'm just thinking. Oh dear, that's even worse. This is serious, isn't it?